Feliz noite, bom semana, naturende. Nós começamos o programa com a escuchando um jogo. E essa é a melhor maneira para começar o show. Com alegria, com boa energia, com positivismo, com optimismo. Sobre essa maneira que nós todos queremos começar nosso semana, e para esse semana aqui por baixo bom, e que desejamos os turcos bom esse semana aqui percurar, para tomar ação para esse semana porta bom. E qualquer reto que apresentar dentro caminho, corda que está normal, para nos vida nos encontrar reto não, para que da nossa atitude tá com nos está surpassar e reto não aqui. Mas é que boak, nós temos invitado, se vai a invitação através de WhatsApp, ou se bota mirando no Facebook, ou pensa que ok, não também papia de turismo de Aruba, seu desenvolvimento, onde nós está e perspectiva de meu invitado, onde nós está indo no futuro. Pero sim, prometo que me introduzir e que me disse bom bini, me te quero estar nesse lugar para me referir na discussão de última semana, especificamente me post arriba social media, para me que eigenlijk focus riba e persona que está quizás lesando tu repost aqui lesando tu back and forth riba social media que portanto não está expressando mesmo portanto não está põe comentário pero a persona que está sentindo quizás incômodo que está sentindo triste que está sentindo que portanto não só que está sentindo que tem demasiado ódio tem demasiado ignorância demasiado indiferença está rondonando. Ruman corda que não está boçou, alright? Corda que se você está passando de um momento difícil, foral, se você está parte de LGBTQ+ community, você está vivendo em ano 2023 e corda que nós estamos em uma época que comparar com 15, 20, 25 anos passados, tem muito mais gente que está compreendendo a muito mais melhor, tem muito mais gente que não está diz respeitar, tolerar, aceitar, pero não por tem também a habilidade de ter empatia, não tem a habilidade de sentir solidário, even se não está parte da LGBT community. Reach out. A pessoa que você estima, reach out a pessoa que você confia papi com ele, alright? Para sua boa saúde mental também é muito importante. Antes aqui está o que hope gente que está bezig está compartilhar demasiado ódio, demasiado veneno riba social media, nota para que um rato para pensar como está afetando a saúde mental de uma pessoa que não está passando em um momento, não para sobra, ainda está processando quem está, ainda está processando para aceitar o mês, para por estimar o mês, para continuar em vida. E não só, para isso não está rando de, não está estimar, não quer me rouper. Tem demasiado ignorância, tem demasiado indiferença, para o melhor que nós por fazer está seguir assim bom. Seguir tá exemplo, seguir fazer o melhor que nós por, pero nós surta humano, nós surta cometer erro. Pero coisa que me tá desejar para nós estar mais consciente de gerir a isla aqui, nós tá papel hope de cultura e nós tá pensa hope, ora nós mencionar cultura, ribe coisa bonita, ribe coisa great, a maneira nossa celebração, nos costumes, não. Pero tem coisa em nossa cultura me te quer que nós tinha para quieto na dia também. E conversar mais DJ e de minha banda, o melhor que eu me posso fazer dentro do meu programa, por estar pondo foco também aqui, que nós temos uma cultura lastimamente também de hipocrisia, nós temos uma cultura de doble moral, nós temos uma cultura de double standards. Nós que medir com diferente medir. E nós temos para que um rato na essay. Como nós queremos seguir para adiante como comunidade, como sociedade, e não que por ter influência aí, de forma consciência, de forma atitude de nós ainda com nos prosseguir, tem influência positiva aí, para nós ainda não usar mais sentido comum, para não portar mais empático, para não por sentir mais solidário com o outro, para não por ter a habilidade de pôr na mesa de sapato de uma outra pessoa. Então, quizás assim nós por mover um pouco mais adiante como sociedade, como comunidade, como ser humano, que está compartilhando valor básico humano com o outro. A conversação vai continuar. Não tem coisa que eu tenho que dar aqui não, pero dentro do grupo de amigos, dentro do grupo de família, conversar, dialogar. Nós falamos de uma cultura que nós estimulamos para estar crítico, uma cultura que nós estimulamos para questionar, uma cultura que nós estimulamos para expressar sem insultar. Vamos por raciocínio mais, comunicar mais, estar mais empático com o outro, estar mais solidário com o outro e compreender a situação do outro. Não corre seguir qualquer pensamento, nem é um dime. Não corre seguir qualquer opinião, nem é um dime. Por pensar para o mês, por estar mais crítico, por buscar mais informação. Hoje em dia, tem tecnologia que nós temos, tem era digital que nós temos, tem muita informação errônea, mas tem muita informação também que é muito valiosa que você pode chegar na gente. Esse é o coisa que me por quizás bisa hoje. Me não que toma muito tempo para sobre mim, quero conversar com o invitado de hoje, para nós vai conversar do potencial de nossa isla e onde nós queremos nossa isla também. É próximo ano, para sobre, apesar de tanto coisa negativo, tem coisa hobby positivo também que está passando na isla aqui e nós temos gente com hobby criatividade, com hobby potencial para a isla aqui de próximo era, de era que ainda nós por sentir mais bem-estar e mais progresso. Então, uma pessoa que vai dedicar quase 40 anos, so, agora eu tenho 36 anos, eu vi hasta 4 décadas de subida no progresso de Aruba. 4 décadas de subida para segurar que a isla que não necessariamente a que nasce, mas que a isla que atume como de seu próprio Yunan e que ela sentia na casa. Na isla aqui, passando há tempo, ela aportar também no desenvolvimento da isla aqui, com o pilar econômico e indústria que mais a generar progresso e bem-estar para nossa isla, que é nosso turismo. Me dá encantar, canta, a papel que a pessoa que estava tendo rol essencial, rol vital no progresso de desenvolvimento e também progresso de nossa isla, ora trata de turismo. Dezembro, eu conversar com ele, então eu comecei a dizer, me lo encantar para poder conversar com ele na casa com Edjean. Ora como eu mensagem de a trobe pensando-me, I'm back on the island. E ok, a homem vai encontrar para estar meu guest. Eigenlijk nós spreken com nós just by get together, nós conversar e papia de coisas importantes. Para mim, vai encontrar para estar meu guest. E não nem pensa dos viagens, digo, sure, let's do it. E hoje, está junto comigo na casa com Edjean. Mr. Edward Malone. What's up, Ed? Thank you so much for being with us tonight.
Thank you, Edjean. Really, it's great to be back. It's great to spend some time with you, and it's always good to come home.
Yeah, I was gonna say that. Welcome home, because this is home for you, right?
Yes.
It's great to see that whenever you're here, you're part of the community. You're part of the island. Even though
I'm part of the island when I'm not here too.
Yeah. So your heart is always on the island. Okay, so today...
Even though I wasn't born on Aruba, I was born to be here.
Oh, that's so nice. You were not born in Aruba, you were born to be here. I'm going to remember that. So, in the introduction, I said that you dedicated almost 40 years of your life.
Yeah, it's scary when you say it that way.
Because I was doing some research.
When I was 11.
And you started coming when you were 11?
No, I started...
Okay, for us to think that. Okay.
No.
But then for those who are watching, I give the opportunity to my guests, most of my guests, to kind of give an introduction in a nutshell, because in your case, you're extremely experienced. You've been doing so much for so long. So if you make a long introduction, we probably will take, 15 to 20 minutes. But then, for those who don't really know you, for those who have just heard the name Ed Malone or Edward Malone, they can link you with the tourism development on the island. How is the best way that you could introduce yourself to those people?
Well, I came to Aruba in almost 40 years ago as a hotelier. I mean, that's really what I am. I am a hotelier. That's what brought me to Aruba. For those people who remember the Americana Hotel on Palm Beach, and that was just now the Barcelo. I worked for a hotel company. We bought a hotel in Aruba. They asked me to come down temporarily to handle the transition of one owner to the other, and I ended up staying. And I mean, I say frequently, I said I came for a job and I found a home. And that's where I've been here ever since. I've been involved with tourism ever since. Hotel operations, many years in the community and the AHAT, the Rural Hotel Association, and by extension became very active in the Caribbean Hotel Association and served as president of the Caribbean Hotel Association back in 2000. But I always found that this was where I was supposed to be, and it became involved across many aspects of the tourism industry, which brought me to my current role. I should say my most recent role that I'm just finishing up, I should say, with the Urban Tourism Authority.
Yeah.
So it's all been hospitality business, tourism business, but that's what brought me here to begin with, was I had studied hospitality management and had worked 10 or 12 years in the States until the company that I worked for at the time bought a hotel in Aruba and said, do I want to come down and help them out here?
Was that the first time that you arrived on the
Yes,
island? You
yes.
visited the island then in the 80s?
It was, the late 80s, and
Do you
those days-
remember how you felt when you,
well, I mean,
arrived
I
on the
mean,
island?
I was very. It was. I think how most people remember is, people, your parents and your family, or what have you, is the island is completely different as far as how it looks and how it feels, and obviously it's grown dramatically in the last 35 years.
Yeah.
But having said that, still the pulse, the heart, the warmth, that's remained intact. And that's the good thing about it.
Okay.
The how people know Aruba, and that's why people come back year after year. That's why people have came here then. They've brought their kids who have now grown up, and now so it's become a very multi-generational place to travel to. So it's like I say, while it's grown and it's still growing. We'll talk about that after.
Yeah, because that's one of the questions I want to ask after.
The pulse, the heartbeat, the feel, the warmth, like I said, has still remained pretty much intact.
Do you remember the first time that you heard about the name or the island Aruba? Can you actually remember that?
The first time I remember, honestly, was somebody that I went to school with, got married, they came there on a honeymoon.
Okay.
And then that was many years before this came up, and I said, I remember that place. But I remember going that Friday afternoon to buy a plane ticket because I needed to come the very next day, and the travel agency, I living in Minneapolis at the time, I just opened a hotel. I said, I need to book a ticket to Aruba tomorrow, and they did not know where Aruba was.
Okay.
The travel agency. And in those days, I had to take a flight from Minneapolis and spend the entire day layover in Miami for the one flight a day on Eastern Airlines.
Wow.
In those days.
In those days. And look at how many flights we have now from here.
I mean, I think we had one direct flight from New York. We had a direct flight from Miami. That I remember. And then there was lots of charter flights from various parts of the Northeast, but that was primarily seasonal in most cases. So, now we look at, we serve 14 gateways directly from the United States, plus Canada, plus obviously Latin America and Europe. So, I mean, it's amazing when I think back about everything that's happened.
Where in the States were you born, Ed?
New Hampshire.
New Hampshire.
Just north of Boston.
North of Boston.
Yeah, I went to school there. I went to university there. Boston was kind of a weekend hangout when I was in college. So we were just talking about Boston, and it brought back memories right away when you start talking about Boston. But I was in the hotel business for around the country. I started in upstate New York, and Texas, and the Southeast. And
is that something you always wanted to do?
it was not my first. This is what I want to be when I grow up list. It wasn't even on the list. It just kind of happened.
What was number one on that list?
I wanted I was going to go into like foreign service, or and then that kind of went into accounting, and it just ended up in business, and this kind of ended up that way. I mean, it's nothing I always have never aspired to do, but it became something that I gravitated to, and I just pursued it then, and it's worked out well.
Okay. So it's not something then that what happened in your life was something that was really planned. One thing led to another, and...
No, I mean, but then having said that, when I was an infant, my parents did run a small little colony of cottages on the lake up in New Hampshire. So maybe it was ingrained in me. I just didn't know it.
Okay. So when you arrived in Aruba, were you... during that, week, 2 weeks? I don't know how long you were planning to stay?
Well, it was kind of a strange first week or two, because we had made the deal. We had bought the hotel from the government at that time, because the government had interest in several hotels, because the government was in the owned hotels to encourage tourism back in the 50s and 60s, and 70s. So we were buying the hotel from the government. So it was a very, long process, to say the least. So I wasn't even allowed to do anything the first 10 days I was here because I was still crossing the T's and dotting the I's and what have you. So I literally spent the first week basically almost like a hotel guest.
Okay.
And I couldn't really talk to the employees. So I went, and I used to hang out across the street from the Americana in those days at a little bar called the Arawak Cafe. Just a little hole in the wall, literally right across the street from, it's actually where the Arawak Garden, a little, where the restaurants and stuff. There was a little bar area. And all the employees used to come out at the end of their shift and go across the street and buy a beer or something. And they said, "Oh, we know you. You're a guest in the hotel." I learned more about the hotel in that first week, but they had no idea who I was or what I was doing there. They just thought I was a tourist.
Well,
so imagine the look on their face a week and a half later when they found out I was going to be the general manager. They went, "Oh my God, the things we just told this guy." So it was kind of fun, but it was all good.
do you remember let's say the 2 things or 3 things that really impacted you about Aruba the first 2 weeks?
The first thing, and unquestionably, and it's something we still hear about and talk about, and we are proud to say about it, is the warmth of the people. It came through immediately. It never, and that's what I said. This is a very unique place. It really was. I mean, people talk about it, but I'd say it that firsthand. It's the first thing. People were very open, very friendly, and then it was just. I talked to people. By after 3 days, I felt like I'd known them for years. That's
Okay.
just the way I felt, and that's the way it made me feel. And they had no idea who I was or who I was going to be, what role I was going to be assuming or what have you. And then just the natural beauty. I mean, just in those days, Palm Beach was 4 hotels. You could
That was
walk
it.
up and down the beach. I suspect it was, even though obviously there's more development on the island now, but I suspect it's almost reminiscent of how the island felt like during COVID when there were no tourists here. It was just very kind of like just that natural untouched beauty. You could just, it was just, but those untangible kinds of things, they just stuck out.
Okay. Now, in your 36, 37 years, maybe even more,
You ever,
you don't want me to continue
it's
mentioning
okay. It's okay. It's all good. I'm proud. I'm proud of it.
What is maybe there are more things, but what is the one thing that if you look back on the development of tourism on the island, what is the one thing that you feel most proud of when you look at that development in Aruba when it comes to the tourism industry?
The way that we grew fast,
Yeah.
and because it really literally happened overnight. How we were able to assimilate that much product with the people, getting people. I mean, the development of the workforce to be able to. I mean, it was a challenge because, not unlike some of the challenges that we face today with the labor force and new development, but maybe I'm going to say it was easier then, but maybe it felt like it was easier. The ability to be able to it happened at the same time, but there was still some type of phasing in, if you will. And as quickly as we opened the hotels, hotels were full because we got the airlines on board,
Wow,
and so I
okay.
mean, it wasn't like we opened a hotel and then we had a glut of empty hotel rooms. It just kind of. I don't want to necessarily say if you build it, they will fill them, but that's almost what it felt like. But that's a tribute to the island, because people wanted it. It was the place. It was the cachet place to go. And people say, "I'm going to go to." My neighbors would say, "I'm going to go to Aruba." So, well, that means I need to go too. That's how it happened. It was just a natural. There was just a natural attractiveness to the name of Aruba and the reputation that it had, that it just attracted people. And yeah, we worked hard, and we marketed, and the government invested a lot of money to keep up with infrastructure and marketing and what have you, but it worked. And we always had, it was almost a success story from the beginning. And it was really, it felt good to be a part of that. I had kind of like I had a front row seat.
You kind of still have a front row seat because I mean you're there.
Yeah.
You're an influence and you're an important figure in the development of tourism. But then you mentioned success story. What should we do for this success story to continue? Because I'm not going to ask you, what do you think of today's development? I could ask you.
Well, I will tell you.
I will get an answer, but then
Yeah, I think that, I mean, I think it's a tougher challenge now. I mean, the cost of doing business has just gone out of sight. I mean, not just for operating businesses or hotels, but obviously just everyone feels that. But that's worldwide. That's global. It's continuing to show what is unique, what is special. I mean, and hence the recent campaigns that the Aruba Tourism Authority rented is, you know, how do we differentiate ourselves from the rest of the Caribbean? Everybody's got beautiful beaches. Everybody's got great weather. Okay, we've got better beaches and we've got better weather, but at the same point in time, weather is weather and beaches, beaches. People, but it's really just how we are able to communicate and push the message that, as we say, the Aruba effect and how it stays with you after you leave. And it's only been 1 year that we've had this campaign out, but it's caught on. It certainly attracts we're attempting, and I think we've had great success with it, attracting a more affluent people to spend money. But having said that, we can't. I mean, I've always said we can't just take everything that we have for granted. And I think you and I have spoken about in the past that there's a tendency to get overly comfortable.
yes,
And with the growth that, you know, with now new hotels being opening up just, you know, over the next couple of years, you know, will we be able to maintain, actually I should say improve, not just maintain, the service levels that people are now expecting?
Yeah.
I mean, we're doing a lot to improve the profile of the visitor to the island, but with that comes a higher expectation of service levels, and people will pay for it if they feel they're getting their value. So I think we have to be very careful, and you know, I do have concerns that how will we staff these hotels and new opportunities efficiently? But that's a whole different debate and,
Yeah.
and process and what have you. But I think it's a general concern. But I think it's continuing for Aruba to show its uniqueness in the region, and how we are able to live up to that promise, the brand promise.
I will come back later on with that as a question, how we can continue to diversify, and then what can we do in the future to, well, not only in the future, starting now, to continue attracting this type of affluent tourists. What are they looking for, and what is the
Yep.
potential on the island? But then going back in the past, when was your first, because you started as a general manager of the Americana Hotel. What happened after? What was your next job after?
I maintained that. I was in that role for 11 years.
Okay.
The entire time that we owned the hotel, I stayed the entire run. The hotel was sold. At that point in time, I got into just doing hotel project work, because I was going to assume the role of president of the Caribbean Hotel Association, which I did for 2 years. And then so I did several small hotel project work, just, you know, independently. And then I went and spent just over a year and a half at the former Bushiri Hotel, when that was there was an attempt or opportunity for that company that I was associated with at the time to buy the hotel, but it became very complicated.
Okay.
So I ended up then I went and did some work for 3 years with Aruba Investment Bank, who at the time owned Talk of the Town.
Interesting. Okay.
Until it was sold. And then spent over 4 years operating Gold Coast, when it was just first opening back in 2008,
Okay.
as the community manager, and I ran the company that was in charge of operation of that project, which was a fascinating project, with the Cruz family, who did an amazing job with that project. It's done very successful. And then along comes the Aruba Tourism Authority, which was almost 10 years. So I've had lots of different kinds of experiences in various roles, but all all unique in their own way, but at the end of the day, still the core of hospitality and tourism, was really at the base of everything.
With your experience working with the Aruba Tourism Authority, your role, your principal role was to expand Aruba's brand, Aruba's name in the United States? Or North America,
North
right?
America.
Yeah.
I led the office, the effort in North America, which there was three regions: Latin America, North America, and Europe. So it's three offices. North America being, needless to say, the largest.
Okay.
We've always had a presence in office in the U.S. and Canada for 45, 50 years.
Yeah.
So since the Aruba Tourism Authority their status became a company sui generis, the way that we did business changed. Kept a lot of the same people. So my role, or our role, really was to, as you say, as correctly said, to expand the brand profile, the brand presence through our marketing efforts, through our sales efforts, through our public relations efforts. We had a very large team of people representing the brand and the island throughout the country and Canada. Obviously, agency partners, creative agencies, media agencies, public relations agencies. So another temporary assignment that became permanent. I came to Aruba temporarily, became permanent, and I went back to New York temporarily and became permanent. I wonder if there's a message there.
How important in this particular process with working with the Aruba Tourism Authority and like creating strategies and developing plans for short-term, mid-term, long-term, how important is data? How important is the collection of data for you guys to?
Any marketing decision was driven by data.
Okay.
Continues to be driven by data.
Okay.
Who our profile is, who our profile of our visitor is, how much money they spend, where are they located, and then we do. I mean, it's a very I don't want to say it's a complicated but sophisticated process in how we use that data. I mean, not just the U.S. I mean, worldwide. And the research department at ATA locally, they do an amazing job. I mean, between the data that we get from our media agencies and the effectiveness of our media, and how it's pushed out, and how we are able to then take all that information and everything we did, every decision we made, how people respond to our message, how many people see our ads, a certain kind of ads.
Yeah.
That's why years ago we stopped doing print advertising, because there's no way to measure effectiveness of how many people actually see a newspaper or a magazine ad, as opposed to the complication. We can look at the TV. People can have a box on their TV. We can run our ad. We only pay for it when they see it, and we know who it is. We can put it in your household because we know you're our client, and how we're able to. I mean, it's all driven by data. It's an amazing technology, and digital world is fascinating. It's we have great people who work with us that really understand all the nuts and bolts. I mean, I learned a lot about it, but it's not a specialty of mine specifically. But we've got great people and agency partners who can tell us everything, and that's the fascinating part of it. We've been very well served.
And this collection of data, I imagine that it's a continuous thing, right? Because you continuously monitor the market and see. Okay, has the profile of the one visiting the island changed over the years? Yes.
Yes, because that's how we have. But we've driven that process. It's ATA. We know who our clientele. We know who our clientele wants to be. But that's all driven. That's also driven by the product. Okay, we've got a high-end product here, so we want to make sure that we go out and market to people who are going to respond to that. Who are looking for that type of product. This is also aspirational. I mean, there are people who certainly come to Aruba who may not fit our profile, but they aspire to be here because that's what they want to be. So that's what That's what makes it so. That's what makes it work.
You know,
It's,
I used
it's a
to,
fascinating. It's a fascinating cycle of work and how technology in the last last 6 or 7 years
it
especially
drives.
has just changed dramatically
Yeah.
how we do business now versus 10, 15 years ago.
I used to work at the Marriott Vacation Club, 2015 to 2016, vacation ownership, sales. And then to me, it was always fascinating to ask these clients that take the sales tour, why Aruba? Most of them are timeshare owners, the
Yeah.
traditional 1 week timeshare owner at the Marriott Surf Club or the Ocean Club. And then that profile of people, most of them, I remember coming to Aruba when there was just the Holiday Inn, staying at the Holiday Inn, seeing the goats in front of the hotel,
Yep.
et cetera, et cetera. So these people are guests that repeat, so as they're called, repeat visitors. They repeat their visit every single year because they kind of own a piece of the rock. Now, the profile of that visiting Aruba in the early 2000s has completely changed, or
Well, the
this group
profile-
does come back because of...
Aruba still has the highest repeat factor of any island in the Caribbean.
Okay.
Now, it's changed because obviously you have people, I mean, as you correctly said, who've been coming here,
For
for
ages.
years. Obviously,
Yeah.
as those people pass on, then we also have to look at how we replenish that. With the younger, with the millennials and with Gen X, and so that's an ongoing process. But keep in mind that a lot of the family members of those people also came.
They continue to
They
come.
come in, and then they've brought their kids. But the repeat factor to the island, once again, because everything goes back to the product. Everything goes back to the people,
Yeah,
and that's why it works.
that was gonna be my question. The why? Why do they
That's-
decide to
it's-
come?
There is those basic attributes to the island of people.
It has to do with who we are,
Exactly. And it will always be that way.
and
I hope, but we'll
Yeah.
get to that in a second. But taking that one step further, so you're talking about your experience at Marriott,
Vacation Club.
so the people who buy timeshare, they think about this. People who buy timeshare are people who first came to a hotel.
yeah,
They came for a week, then they came for 2 weeks, maybe they came for third week. Okay, let's buy a timeshare, and then they start that process all over again. They buy 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. As they get older, what's their next step? I'm going to buy a vacation home. Hence, you have a Tierra del Sol, the Gold Coast, and all of these other, maybe in condominium developments.
yeah.
The majority of those people are
Started.
people who came and they
Staying at
loved
a
it so
hotel and
much.
then bought a
They loved
timeshare.
it so much they keep coming back.
Yeah.
They bring their friends. They bring their family. Now their family brings their family, and it's a wonderful. The timeshare business at Aruba. Who would ever have thought that would have been? I mean, that's a success story in itself. But having said that, the timeshare industry is what kept this island alive. I shouldn't say kept it alive, but contributed greatly to the island during those lean years in the financial crisis back in 2008 to 2012, when most islands lost most of their airlift because people weren't traveling. But Aruba pretty much maintained because those timeshare owners were going to come year after year, regardless. They've already bought their vacation. They're still going to buy their air
True.
ticket.
And what when I saw in the sales tour those guests that were the sons and daughters or even the grandchildren, I asked, so would you consider using your timeshare to trade and go somewhere else, like go to Hawaii and they're like, no, we're going to continue coming to Aruba because they love Aruba. And then-
The exchange companies will tell you that anyone who buys an Aruba probably won't be trading.
Yeah.
And people who may have, interval or RCI membership are probably going to be very lucky if somebody, has an opening and trade out their week, go to Aruba. I'm not going to say it doesn't happen, but certainly it's a lower percentage.
I did see. I remember a couple. I will never forget them. They got an exchange. They usually just stay. And they travel nationally. They're Americans. And then the lady was like, "Well, it's too much. Like what she's paying because they own a timeshare in the States, and then they were paying like 600-700 for the maintenance fee every
Right.
year. And when I heard that, I was like, ma'am, what the owners in Aruba are paying at the Marriott is like, it used to be $1,500, $1,600.
That was,
So when I heard that, I'm like, okay, so she probably cannot afford owning a timeshare on the island, although what we were selling was the more hybrid
Right.
type of
Right.
vacation ownership. And then she continued to basically complain about the maintenance fee. I knew that she wasn't going to buy. And then I said, well, ma'am, Aruba is not for everybody. Maybe I shouldn't have said that, but then Aruba is not for everybody because there is a certain level of type of tourist that you would like to attract. However, a lot of people do want to be here.
Yeah.
Now, you talked about the affluent tourist. And I've always wondered, seeing so many researches being done, I think the name Sam Cole, is that a name that
Sure.
resonates?
Yep.
Okay. In a report that I read that I think he published in 2010 or 11,
he published several studies for
Okay.
Aruba over
I
the
saw
years.
that if the tourist has a perceived high value of, let's say, a cultural experience in St. Nicholas, they will be willing to pay their cab ride, for instance, to go to St. Nicholas. However, what is offered to them has to be high level. I saw that the ATA launched a website in 2017, I think it was, Comira para Futuro. And we kind of focused on this 2 years ago or a year ago in another show that our foundation has, Go Cultura has. The show is called Bampapi Cultura, and during that show we focused on the potential of the creative industries, the cultural industries linked to tourism. And we focused on a finding that based on the tourists that visit the island, 1% of what they spend on the island goes towards arts and culture, which to me doesn't look like something negative. It looks like, oh, there is potential. There is room for development. There is room for growth. Is this something that, from your experience, the tourist visiting Aruba is really also looking for? Not just looking for great weather and obviously meeting the people, etc., but are they looking for a more cultural type
We
of experience?
part of ATA's annual activities is we do part of our research is
Yeah.
we do brand equity studies, consumer sentiment, and the most recent one that was done, and it's not unlike previous years. And we look at Aruba. We do we basically ask people. We don't say they don't necessarily know that we're doing the research that's coming from Aruba, but we put out us and our core competitive group, if you will, in the islands and the Caribbean. And we get into culture. Quite frankly, Aruba rates very low on culture because people, talking about people who've been here now, okay?
Exactly,
Because
yeah.
they don't know what our culture is.
Yeah,
They don't know
exactly.
what we have. The culture, but then again, who rated very high was Cuba. Or the Dominican,
I'm not surprised.
so, to answer your question, of course, there's interest. Culture is still part of our ATAs, part of our message. We have made a serious effort to include more of it in what we do. Yourself has been a part
Yeah,
of that
of
process, and that was positive steps. And obviously, with some of the great things that are happening in San Nicolas with the murals and all that. That itself is become something that's talked about more and more. It's just one small part of it. But it goes back to how we define culture and how we get that message across to the people. But there's to your point, there's absolutely potential. That's why it's key to Aruba Tourism Authority's core intent to do more with it, because we do realize that there is a market for that.
But then I feel, Ed, this is my perception, it doesn't have to be the reality, that the Aruba Tourism Authority is not the one or just the one entity that has to help develop this on the island.
Absolutely not.
We as the sector that I'm part of, the cultural and creative sector, we need to be aware that this sector has potential. Yes, we have challenges. We need to overcome these challenges by expanding and expanding knowledge and building on our capacity. However, we need to be more aware that there is potential and there is opportunity.
And it goes beyond culture. That sentiment that you correctly say goes beyond culture. Other key elements of the community, that same point is critical as well.
Okay. Now, before the show started, we got to go to a commercial break for a few seconds. I told you something that left you baffled, that it was an American that designed the Aruban flag in 1976.
I wasn't sure what you were talking about when you said before the show started.
No, don't worry. And I told you that we are going to tell the story about this Aruban flag this year. And we're going to do a documentary about this person's perspective. Sarah Bollinger, that was born in the States. She was the person in charge of designing the Aruban flag in 1976. Of course, by gathering all those almost 700 designs. Do you think that this could also help tell a great story about the island? That the Americans, especially that market in northeastern United States, would feel more linked
When
to
you
Aruba?
when you first told me that story before we started, that's exactly where my mind went. I said there has to be something there. I don't know what it is, but there has to be something there, because that's the first I heard that, because I'm saying to myself, somebody from off the island to design the flag. I never knew that.
Yeah.
So there has to be something there, especially that connection to the U.S. And I mean, Boston's the birthplace of America, so I guess it could be the birthplace of Aruba too.
Well, at least
You
the
know what I'm
Aruban
saying?
flag. We're going to tell the story of the Aruban flag this year, Go Cultura Foundation. I'm going to continue saying this in English because I want him to, well, he does understand Papiamento also. Because I told him that this year Go Cultura is going to tell the story about the flag of Aruba, but the untold stories of the making of Aruba's flag, because many people still do not know the name of the person who designed this flag, which is Sarah Bollinger, Mrs. Sarah Bollinger. She passed away, though, over a decade ago. We have been communicating with her son, Mr. Murray Bollinger, and he told us that he does want us to tell the story of Sarah. He has a big collection that Sarah left behind, and Go Cultura is working on this. And that is why on the 15th of March, we will be doing a fundraising concert to gather the funds that we need to make this trip, become a reality. We will be doing this concert a few days before the National Flag and Anthem Day, Dia de Himno y Bandera, right here at W Manor. But this time, however, we will be doing it in our backyard. We are finally transforming this backyard for you to be in the Mondi vibe and enjoying Aruban music with a few musicians. So all of those who are interested, do communicate with us. Only 50 people can attend this concert, not more. I do know that many people are waiting for our next concert. No te hopi gente por atender concierto aquí, so comunica con nos para botarme porta parte DJ. We are going to tell the story of the national anthem also. 2 different documentaries. They are going to come out this year. We are going to premiere these 2 documentaries, The Untold Story of Aruba's Anthem and The Untold Stories of Aruba's Flag. Bolo bay wak mas information na commercial break, no bay nyung camino, Jesus the back. Lagan nos contabo historia nan kun nunca bo atende di Aruba su himno y su bandera. Y la Fundación Go Cultura den hazaña aquí para nos por lograr así un viaje importante para rescatar y documentar historia nan nunca contado. Con Aruba a llegar a su himno y su bandera na año 1976. Jaranson, 5 de marzo na W Manor nos lo contabo más. Vin disfrutar de un concierto dedicado a nos Aruba, para nos celebrar nos día de himno y bandera. Sostenernos y ayuda Fundación Go Cultura a recaudar fundo na que ainda está necessário para assim nos resgatar parte de nossa história e enriquecer nossa herência e nosso conhecimento. Comunicar conosco na 569-5442 para reservação ou para mais informação.
Você está buscando uma companhia para trabalhar poster, banner, stickers, flyers, tickets, business card e muito mais? Clickprint Aruba. Qualidade, bom serviço e bom preço. Nanta experto em billboard ads. Para mais informação, yamanang na 588-2634. Mail clickprintaruba@gmail.com. Clickprint em Avenida Milia Cruz, 106, Local 3.
Danke por seguir junto conosco. Nós estamos contentos de aquele comentário. Saludo hope especial e cordial para Graciela, para Julius. Todos não que está em sintonia na casa com Edjean, que está mirando. Conversação interessante aqui tocante nos turismo, onde nós está onde nós está deseado de vai. Vou por poner o comentário, por certo, vou por poner, não diz o comentário, vou pergunta, vou por mandar-me via WhatsApp se quer 569-5442. Pero vou por poner a pergunta também na live video, me lo percurar para assim na ad. E prometo que commercial break, mas nossa papo antigo de razão trobe, outro razão de Fundação Go Cultura de caso de viajar aqui para contar a história não como nós entende ainda de processo para chegar no nosso himno nacional, tem coisas como nós entende ainda. Para esse nós temos uma entrevista muito importante para assim com o senhor Aníbal Abreu, que é arreglista do himno original gravado em 1976. E algum dia não que grava não stem, ribe himno aqui tem história não muito interessante para contar, mas também nós quer contar a história de perspectiva de pessoa que desenhar a bandeira de Aruba, depois de receber 693 desenho não que nos local nga manda den na 76, ela faz uso de coluna, de símbolo não e o desejo do povo de Aruba para pôr como profissional e experto em essa aqui, pôr tudo isso aqui em outro para assim nós por escolher a bandeira que tempo vira algo muito polêmico também, especialmente o blow de a bandeira de Aruba e den história de a pessoa aqui que é Sarah Bollinger de feliz memória, bota bahia sa também, que o blow que eu escolhi, o tempo é não está solamente para o cielo e el ama blow, mas tem uma bonita história por trás também. E tem carta que a pessoa aqui, Sarah Bollinger, manda para outro grande juditeira, senhor Betigo Cruz, em feliz memória. Tem a carta aqui, tem a correspondência aqui, bota beleza. Kiko, está emotivo também, com o blow, a hora de escolher, o blow de nos bandeira. Pois, é interessante, se você quer ajuda-nos, tem a razão aqui. Bonota diz vai ajuda, bota vai desfrutar de concert, dia 5 de março, aqui na W Manor. Nós começamos a celebrar o Dia Nacional, Dia de Himno e Bandeira, bota desfrutar de boa música, de setting hopi relajante, hopi dushi, pero também vou mirar mais depois, que o aporte ajuda no produto final, que o documentário aqui, que ajuda a expandir nos conhecimento, mas também te ajuda na educação de nos gente em vários aspectos, sobre é importante para nós saber mais de nossa história e para nós saber mais de nossa história. Ora que a gente não visita Aruba, essa aqui também vira algo muito grande que por conta dos turistas. Ora que não apuntamos mais de boa história e mais de boa cultura. Now, Ed, I was just talking about education. About how important it is for our people to continuously, in a way, acquire knowledge and how important it is for us to expose our story and our history, not just to the locals, but then to those who visit Aruba, for them to get a more experiential type of visit to the island for them to have more of a cultural type of experience, for the Aruba effect maybe to last longer. How about a tourism education when it comes to those who are basically the ambassadors, the faces of this tourism of the island? Are we doing?
Tourism education is something that, in my opinion, something that is lacking big time.
Okay.
We talk about our people, how wonderful our people are. We talked about that's the what's ingrained in the DNA, service and hospitality and what have you. Our visitors talk about how wonderful the people are and what have you. But having said that, we salute our people. Hata does a great job every year with their program and recognition program. But we don't talk about tourism at all in our schools.
No, we
at
don't.
all.
Nope.
At all. 18 years old, they finish their education, or their high school education, if you will, and then what? Okay, obviously there are certainly many students who have areas of study they want to pursue, whether it's here or outside the island. But in a lot of cases, that's not the case.
Yeah.
And tourism is more than, there's the education that a lot of young people get in tourism is what they hear from their mom, their dad, or their aunt, their uncle, their brother, and what have you. And that's it. But we don't talk about tourism, to the younger kids in school or as they get older, and I think it's a missed opportunity. We're talking about how important the tourism is to this island. We know what the economic impact of tourism is to this island, but we do very little to promote it, to promote the benefits of tourism, the opportunities of tourism. It's so much more than just hotels. It's much more than that, and we rely on. Especially now when we're talking about all this hotel development coming up, we're going to need people, and we know we can't bring more people into the island. But at the same point in time, we've really done nothing to really address tourism education and start that process at a younger age, as opposed to, okay, obviously many local young people they'll pursue an education at an APE or an APB or the university, which is great, but not always planned. I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to go get a degree in hospitality management or whatever. Maybe they do, or maybe they don't. I know that I used to teach years ago at Bushiri, and then obviously when it moved up to Cerro Blanco. And a lot of those students really had no desire to be studying, to be in the hospitality business. They were taking the class because they needed to do something.
And you think that the desire that they didn't have was because they were not really exposed since?
Could be lots. Could be that. It could be other reasons. But I'm just saying it was interesting to see that experience. Certainly, but having said that, I also know that there's also been many young people, many young persons who did go to the school and have done very well. They have flourished. So I'm not saying it. I don't want to cast doom and gloom here. But my point is I think that we have a real opportunity to be teaching tourism education in the schools as part of the curriculums. Through the younger formative years and maybe into, as they get a little older as well.
I did read a report last year, but this report I think did not come out last year. Maybe you read it also. I don't remember the name of it. That the younger generations are not really that prone or excited to join the tourism industry compared to the older generation. Mm-hmm. And two of the reasons that I read were they don't feel excited because they think that the development of tourism did not go hand in hand with the preservation of nature, and it doesn't go hand in hand with the development of culture. But that to me is showing that, okay, we do have an opportunity now to focus on
Yep.
preservation of nature, and then also to give an impulse to the cultural and creative sector on the island for those people that we need right now and in the future to work in the tourism industry to feel more excited.
I think that's probably legitimate finding. But having said that, in addition to that is a lot of people feel they don't want to work in the tourism sector because it's nights, it's weekends. That's a fact. That's a fact.
Okay.
And or maybe some of the jobs are more beneath them, if you will.
Yeah.
And that's fine, but there's so much more. So much more to hospitality and tourism than to working at the front desk or in a restaurant. So much more than that. And those are good jobs. Don't get me wrong. And a lot of people have done very well there, and moved from there. But I can tell you, you got to start somewhere.
Somewhere. Yeah.
And,
you got to be able to do the work.
But at the same point in time, and it comes back. Part of the tourism education is also that whole process of especially the younger age, is how to develop a work ethic. And I believe that we have some real opportunities on that.
Okay, to put it nicely.
I'll be very politically correct.
We can do better. Ed did not say that. I'm not saying that he said. I said it. We can do better.
We can always do better.
I never stood still on that, like thinking about my own education and the years that I went to school was never exposed. I mean,
you're exposed but not exposed.
You're exposed because
around it.
Exactly, it's around you. But then at school, you're not. They don't talk to you about it. And it's
years
important.
ago,
It's very
talking
important.
back in the 90s, I actually came to the Department of Education. True story. Department of Education, Minister of Education. I don't remember now who it was, but it doesn't make any difference. I actually brought a program that had been developed, sponsored by American Express.
Oh.
Student manuals, teachers' manuals. The program was developed for third grade students and maybe seventh graders. They weren't interested
Did
because
they
it
tell
wasn't
you why?
because wasn't certified by the
the
Dutch system and
yeah.
what have you, and it just disappeared. And they said, well, maybe we can replicate it. You don't do it that way.
Well, that's another topic.
But that's
then,
a different conversation.
No, but because I've had educators on the program, and all of them tell me that the educational system in Aruba is how many decades old?
Yeah.
Arthur? The educational system on the island is quite
Antiquated?
antiquated. Yes. About 70 to 75 years. That shocked me when I first heard that. I'm like,
But I think it's a real opportunity. I continue to believe that's a real opportunity.
so what can we expect from Ed, like moving forward? Because we saw the official news. I mean, you did tell us this news last year.
Yep.
That since the 1st of January 2023, there is a new
Yes.
head of.
I have handed over the key, so to speak, to the new area director, Shady
Area
Feliciano,
director.
who's been with the ATA for 25 years,
Yeah,
and she'll do an amazing job. She's an amazing woman.
she is.
Very talented.
She is.
Very well educated.
Yep.
Tested, and she'll do very well. She will definitely elevate the position to the next step. In the meantime, I am still working, onboarding her to this role
Okay.
over the next few months, because she's still doing she's still handling over her job as well at the same time. So she's about to onboard, and at the same point that she's being
Onboarding
onboarded.
another- Yeah.
So but she'll do very well. As for me, I'm exploring many opportunities nothing that can be announced at the moment.
Okay.
But I'm exploring many opportunities. I do expect that I will return to my full-time residency in Aruba.
Nice. That's nice to know.
I expect that to be the case. I mean, kind of just trying to figure out all those dynamics at the moment. But time will tell very soon. But
All right.
I'm exploring at many opportunities, and some it's exciting, and it's making decisions. And you make decisions for marketing and promoting the island, but when it comes to making decisions for your own thing, it's a little more challenging sometimes.
Weird, huh?
Yeah.
But it seems that you're always willing to share knowledge and
Oh, yeah.
and you've gathered so much experience throughout these years. And
I've been very fortunate. I've been very fortunate to have been exposed to as much as I have.
yeah.
If I had the wherewithal to do it, I wish I had kept a log, because this would have been a made-for-TV movie.
Then would you consider at least writing a book or something?
I don't even know
about your life?
I don't know where I'd begin. I've forgotten more than I remember, probably.
Now, in 2016, Ed, when we were recording the national anthem
Yes.
in New York, you were there.
Yes.
I assume that for you that was an amazing experience
Yes.
also.
Yes.
So how about then in May that we travel to Boston, you'll be there?
Is
that close to home?
If it's definitely close to home. I mean, it's between my current resident home and close to my home of birth.
There you go.
If it's the right date, I would love to. 'Cause
Count
I
you
love
in.
Boston.
Yeah.
I love Boston. I know that I have to be. Those dates strike a bell. You told me early May. That's. I'm in Aruba until the last week, like to the 3rd, I think, and then I think I'm some days the week
we can
after.
plan
So
around it.
if you can plan it a week later,
Yeah,
then
we'll
fine.
plan
We can
around
plan
it.
it, but no, I'd love to be to Boston. But
I
yes,
mean-
but that experience with the national anthem back in 2016 with Jonathan was spectacular.
It was.
I'm sure it was spectacular for all the people who
Of course it was.
who
Yes,
participated in it, because
definitely.
it wasn't just when people say, oh, they went to New York, but it was hard work, but you all did an amazing job, and hey, the results speak for itself.
Indeed. It was great seeing you there also.
Yeah.
And it was nice seeing that you are always interested in these initiatives and always interested in knowing more about the island and using your influence also to impact others. That's extremely important. Now, when it comes to then the future of the tourism on the island, what do you foresee? So foreseeing is something and wishing is something. What do you foresee?
I foresee. I think that the island, Aruba, will always have a successful tourism industry. There's no question about that. Having said that, I think there are some genuine concerns that I hope won't create too many obstacles. But obviously, the big one is obviously the cost of doing business. I mean, how do we sustain? How can we operationally succeed
Yeah.
with that kind of, whether it's utilities or always Aruba has always been an expensive destination. We all know that, and we all know why it's the case. Having said that, the whole infrastructure cost of doing business for electricity and water and everything, it's big. It's big. How governments are able to incentivize businesses, whether it be small or big, for energy saving. I mean, I remember, like I say, I've been I'm here a lot, but I'm also not necessarily in touch with all the idiosyncrasies of nuances, everything on the island. But years ago, I know that when they were beginning, for solar panels and what have you, that they encouraged it, but the government they still wanted to get their 25 or 30% import duty at the same point in time. So there has to be a give and take on these
Yeah.
kind of things, because obviously there's a continuing drain on Webb and on Elmar and what have you. And how many power failures have there been in the last 2 years? I think there's been more power failures in the last 2 or 3 years than the last 20 combined. But I think there's reasons for that. But having said that, I'm getting a little off tangent here, but the cost of doing business, I think, is going to have a dramatic effect on tourism, because we're pricing ourselves out of the market. But like I say, pricing and this is not unique to Aruba. But having said that, we have to be very, very careful. Number one. Number two, how we improve and I talked about it already, the service levels. You know, the fact that we're going to have 1,200 new hotel rooms come up on this island in the next, or more, in the next two or 3 years, you know, staffing of those big hotels. Where's that coming from? It's going to come from the existing hotels. So what the cycle is you're going to, at the end of the time, you're going to be affecting the quality of service once again.
Yep.
You know, how much, I know this is a debate that's been going on for years and years, but obviously the mix of Aruban versus imported labor and how that impacts, we've been fine, so I think, for the most part. But there are some, and I'm not, and I think a lot of people are aware of these issues. This is, what do we put into place to be able to protect what's Aruba's known for. And I think there's some genuine concern. I mean, I'm optimistic because I've always, that's this, like, I'm the eternal optimist by default. But having said that, I think I have some genuine concerns, but I do believe that everything can proceed and has the potential to continue to succeed at a level that we've been accustomed to.
All right. Interesting.
Because I want to believe that, and if you have to want to believe that to make sure it happens,
Exactly.
and I do believe that. We've got good people. We have a lot of good people. We've got great leadership at the Urban Tourism Authority and hotels. I mean, you've got tremendous professionals who are running this, you know, private sector, public sector, who are running, who are contributing to the success of the island, and that's not going to change.
All right.
How we're able to take that skill level, that talent, and pass it on to the younger people. That's the opportunity.
Okay. Now, Ed, in my talk shows, most of the shows, at the end of the show, I have 20 fast fact questions that I ask my guests. They're fun questions.
Okay.
I really never look at these questions. I get them when we're doing the show. And it's mostly to get to know the person a bit better. So nothing too personal, don't worry. Okay, we're going to start with the first question. You probably, this is not the first question, by the way.
These are one-word answers, basically?
No. You can give, yeah. You've been to local parties, I assume, right? All those
I've been
years.
to a few.
Okay, so and you know some local snacks then that they hand out to these. Okay, first question: what is your favorite local snack during parties on the island?
I can taste it. Croquette.
Croquette. Okay. What do you love most about Aruba?
I have to say the people. I have to say the people.
Okay.
I have to say the people, because I really do.
What does
Maybe it's cliche, but it's a fact.
Yeah. Okay. What does your ideal retirement look like?
Retirement is not in my DNA.
Oh, so you will continue working till the day you die.
Part of my DNA.
Okay. All right. So then the perfect and ideal retirement would be just working.
Well, but working at maybe at a different pace.
Yeah.
But contributing and working will always be part of my DNA.
Awesome. What would your ideal seat be on a roller coaster? In the front, in the middle, or in the back?
In the back.
Yeah.
Actually, if I had a choice, it wouldn't be on it at all.
Okay. You would not step on it. All right. How do you define success?
Wow. At the end of the day, or the end of the month, or the end of the year, looking back and saying I can sleep at night because I did good.
All right. What is your favorite music genre?
Generally speaking, Latin.
Latin.
That's
Specifically?
very wide open.
Yeah. You have a specific one?
No,
Okay.
I love Latin music.
What is the first thing that made you fall in love with Aruba?
God, that's just the first. There's only one thing. You could drink the water.
Yeah? Wow. Okay.
No, that's just one of many things.
But then, okay, so
One
that
of many
bewildered
things.
you when you noticed that you could drink the tap water? Or?
No, I was
Okay.
I was kind of like joking when I said that kind of thing.
Okay.
No, I just think that at the time, just the tranquility and the peacefulness of the island.
All right. What do you listen more to? Your hunger or your sleep?
My hunger or what?
Sleep.
It
What
has
do
to be
you
hunger because I don't sleep, and obviously I haven't missed a meal.
Okay. Now, do you have a morning ritual? Like something you do every single morning after you wake up?
Take all my medicine.
All right, fair enough. What is your best memory from? What is the best memory from the lockdown of COVID-19?
Well, I was in New York City in the hotbed of it all when it first started.
Oh wow!
And I remember packing up my office, my laptop, and my desktop and my printer, and going to my little studio apartment and figuring out how I was going to live and work in this small space for a period of time, which we thought was a couple of weeks, which turned out to be 4 months.
Yeah.
And then, integrating myself back into the office. I remember it, and remember because it was 3 days after the borders had closed, like the 18th, 19th of March of 2020, and I was at the office, and I was literally told by my colleagues here, get out of there, get home, because I was still going to the office every day as this thing was, manifesting itself, and that's exactly what I did. Just that whole mentality of now I'm going to be working from home because I was never a work from home person. I am now.
Huh. So okay. Interesting. What do you do most of the time during flights? Do you sleep? Do you read? Do you listen to music? Do you watch people's behavior?
I pretty much have the same seat every time.
Okay.
One of three seats. I do one of three things. I will either open my laptop and do work, or I will maybe see a movie that I haven't seen that I've wanted to see, or see one that I've seen before that I liked seeing, or I will doze off because usually there are 7 o'clock in the morning flights and I had to get up at 4.
Oh. Okay. Interesting. What is your favorite place on earth to welcome the new year?
Every year, I've been in New York the last 9 years, last 9 or 10 New Years. Every year at midnight, including this past, I go on FaceTime Live, and I'm in Aruba on FaceTime Live at midnight. True story.
Okay.
I will find somebody who's broadcasting live at midnight on FaceTime Live, and because I don't think there's any celebration for New Year's that's anything close to Aruba. It's a true story.
Wow. So,
In fact, this past year, I get a little upset because I couldn't find, and I found one, but I always wanted to go to the top of Hooiberg on New Year's Eve
You
and
can
watch
still
the
do it?
island. No, I just never did it. I always wanted to do it, to go to the top of Hooiberg on New Year's Eve and watch the islands explode in color and celebration.
you've never done it.
I've never
Yeah.
done it.
You could still do it.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Could be a nice plan to do that. What is the best advice you would give to your 16-year-old self?
Don't stop dreaming.
All right. Do you know how to make an Aruba Riba drink?
Do not.
Okay. I don't either. But then I have it here. Pour orange juice, pineapple juice, grenadine, vodka, rum, creme de banana, and lemon juice into a cocktail shaker filled with ice.
See, I didn't know about the...
Place lid on shaker and shake until well combined, 10 to 15 seconds. Strain into a glass filled with ice. Top with cherry and orange slice and sing the
Is that
Aruban
the-
national anthem.
Is that the original recipe?
Yeah, it is. Orange juice, pineapple juice, grenadine, vodka, rum, creme de banana, and lemon juice.
I didn't know about the creme de banana.
We should make this after the show, by the way. Okay, next one.
If you keep asking me questions like this, we'll have to drink two.
Who is your celebrity look-alike?
Swear to God, Elton John.
Really?
I went to an Elton John concert on New Year's Eve in New York the first year, and I bought an Elton John T-shirt. And I didn't know this. And ever since I've done, they said, "Why are you wearing a picture on your shirt? Why have a picture of yourself on your shirt?"
So
And I didn't know that. Now that's what people tell me. I don't necessarily believe that, but that's what people tell me.
you gotta compare it then.
I don't necessarily see it. I don't.
Okay, so you gotta walk around with a shirt and then have Ed Malone's slogan on that shirt. What would that slogan be?
Wow. I'm not sure it's a slogan, but it's something I believe in. If you want something done, give it to somebody who already has too much to do.
Okay.
Because I live by that mantra.
Yeah. Which district on the island? Which district on the island will have the honor of having you as its newest citizen or newest member?
Some places I haven't lived before.
I don't know. Have you already decided whether you're going to live on the island or not? Which district is going to have that honor?
I would probably go to my Aruban roots, which is in Nord.
Close by. That's
Yeah.
good to know. Okay.
Nord, which is a big area, but
Yeah. Okay. Does Ed Malone have an alter ego?
I hope not.
So you don't. Because I was going to ask if your alter ego has a name.
Yeah, I don't know if I have an alter ego.
Okay. If you had the opportunity to brand a hotel to a name of your choice, what will it be named?
Tranquility.
That makes me want to stay in that hotel. Okay, Tranquility. The last question. What you wanted to say?
Tranquility or serenity, and I always said, because I had looked at years ago trying to do something something very unique and small in the Malmock area, and I wanted to call it serenity or tranquility. Either one, it would work. The Inn at Malmock.
The Inn at Malmock. Now the last question. What would the 5 items be that you would put in your memory box for you to remember the island when you're abroad? Because usually I ask this question for people and I tell them, well, the memory box could be something that you could use when you lose your memory or that your loved ones could remember you by when you pass away. But in this case, what would the 5 items in your memory box be for you to remember the island when you're abroad?
The flag.
Okay.
A CD from Edjean.
I feel so honored.
Oh, I love your music. I love your music.
Thank you so much, sir.
A piece of currency.
Okay.
I would say a seashell, but you can't take those things with you,
I know.
or something along that's representative of the sea. And this is not really a Aruban, but I did it in Aruba, but a recipe that I published in a cookbook in Aruba
Nice. Very nice.
that I wish I could find so I could cook it again.
Can you remember
I
when
wish
it was published?
Yes, it was back in the. It was a book that was done for the Humane Society in the late '90s.
Okay,
And
so
I've
we
not been
have
able to find it.
we have an ally watching, Graciela. You know what to do then. She's a very
There
good
was a
friend
book.
of
It
ours.
was published. The book was published by Linda Shapiro. I don't know if you know Linda.
Linda
She
Shapiro.
passed away
I've heard
recently.
about her. Yeah.
She did published a cookbook of recipes of local personalities to benefit the
I remember
Humane
this.
Society.
Okay.
And I had a recipe in that, and I have been trying to find it ever since.
Well, yeah,
about
I
that?
think we're gonna find it. Probably tomorrow. I'll have it for you. I don't know. I don't
Anyway.
want to put pressure on you, Graciela, but she's a
But
very good
I,
friend and a good ally of ours.
And
She works at the
I
library.
I used that recipe to compete in a culinary contest with one of my Aruban cooks at the Caribbean Hotel Association. We did it before they had Taste of the Caribbean back in the 90s when it was started. They do these chefs, culinary to promote culinary in the Caribbean.
Nice.
So Korean Hotel Association personalities came and they could chef. So I decided that I wasn't going to bring my top chef. I was going to bring one of my Aruban developing chefs with me. So he went with me to, I think we're in the Bahamas. It was the same year that I was named Caribbean Hotelier of the Year, as it turned out. I didn't know that at the time. And we developed this recipe.
Nice.
And that's what we served.
Very nice.
So I just remember that
Interesting.
story. That's why it's special to me.
Yeah.
Not the
Hopefully we
recipe
will
itself,
find it.
but yeah.
Now, about the seashell, I mean, I had an interview with engineer Edward Chin.
Uh-huh.
And we're going to have a Reuben sand on the moon in a few months. So maybe Ed Malone can have like at least a seashell in his
Yeah.
memory box.
Who knows?
Allowed
But-
by the government of
but- yeah,
Aruba.
but-
But it's a
uh,
nice thing to know. The
yeah.
flag, a CD of mine, something that represents the ocean the ocean of Aruba, your recipe, and then I'm missing something. The flag, the CD,
I did say 5 things. Now I don't remember now
the
what.
recipe.
Maybe I should get that recipe from Aruba Riba.
What was the
I
fifth
don't
thing?
remember what the other one was. Now I don't remember. No, that's why we have to have a memory box. The currency.
The currency. All right. It's nice to get to know you better, Ed. Thanks so much for accepting the invitation.
Thank you for the invitation.
And
I enjoy watching your programs immensely, and I'm glad that I could be a part of it as well.
thank you so much. What would be your last message for the local that is watching? Doesn't have to be a person that was born here, but the people living in Aruba. What would be the message given by Ed Malone related to tourism and the future of tourism?
I basically, and I alluded to it in my comments, please don't take the success of tourism for granted.
All right. Strong message. Let's not take the success of tourism for granted. With that note, thank you so much, Ed.
Thank you.
For not taking it for granted and for being a positive influence on that development.
Thank
And
you.
hopefully by also using your knowledge and your experience, we can continue on that path of securing more prosperity on the island, but also more sustainable development when it comes to tourism. All the best.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank you
much.
very
Na
much.
abo ko wak nos awi noci hopi danki pa acompanhar-nos durante o rato aqui danki pa comentário nan danki pa mensahe nan quadrenta nos topa jarang song awod em outro episódio de Na Casco Edjean. Turcos bom, feliz noite, um braço, hopi forte pau. Take care.